Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, brought to you by Norman Goodfellows, and welcome to a restaurant there's a very good chance you have not been to yet, because it has only just opened. It might be familiar because the Houghton Hotel in which it sits has become something of a favourite in South Africa, and if you're a golfer, well, the sprawling views across the course that I actually played yesterday around one of the finer 18-hole layouts in the country. But if you haven't been to the restaurant itself, you will certainly know the chef because she is one of South Africa's most lauded. She's cooked at some pretty impressive spots, and she's now calling Cyra, the brand new restaurant at the Houghton home. Candice, it's lovely to have you on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm trying to think like the very first time I encountered you, and equally importantly, your splendid food, would have been the Saxon. And there was that very grumpy elderly Namibian guy who used to wander around and do a bit of cooking as well. Working with David Higgs, working at the Saxon, that was kind of my introduction. But go back a little bit before that, where did the discovery that you could light up kitchens as you do begin?
So I kind of came into the industry by default, if you would. And I landed up doing an apprenticeship. So I did an apprenticeship for 4 years, and I did that in a huge, big banqueting space. So it was very much a hit the ground running kind of scenario. And eventually found myself at the Saxon. I did work at the Saxon for 15 years, and included in that was opening 500 with Chef David Higgs, and another restaurant there was Luke Del Roberts at the Saxon, and then my own space, which was Grey at the Saxon. And then obviously during COVID, we closed Grey. I did a 2-year residency at Basalt at the Peach Hotel, and now I find myself here.
It's been an extraordinary career. You've done all of this different stuff. You've worked with so many different chefs. How much has the cooking, the approach changed since when you first started out to where you find yourself today?
I think it has changed a lot. Like when I first started, obviously food has changed over the years, but the portion sizes that people, well, if you're dealing in banqueting, are much larger than what you would be dealing with now as a fine dining chef. But yeah, things have changed over the years. Obviously produce changes as well, and it all sort of plays a part in what we are putting on the table. And creativity is a huge part. So that's probably my biggest draw card to this industry, is the alchemy of putting together new dishes and seeing people, light up when they eat them.
Speaking of people lighting up, one of the advantages of dropping in on the Saxon from time to time is you'd walk around a corner and bump into Bruce Springsteen, or
Yes.
Oprah Winfrey was busy doing sit-ups in the gym. Who were some of the people, at risk of any non-disclosure agreements you might have signed, who somebody came rushing into the kitchen, "Oh, chef, you won't believe who's having dinner tonight"?
So obviously there's a lot of people that I've cooked for or been in the presence of in these different spaces. Obviously can't be mentioning all of them, but musicians, politicians, all sorts of people, as you mentioned, Oprah, Nelson Mandela, the usual sort of suspects, I guess.
You've dealt with all these rock stars, what have been the rock star dishes over the year? What are those dishes that you've produced and that one is guaranteed to make people's socks come off at high speed?
So obviously during my career, I was or have been part of the national culinary team for South Africa. So you get to do a lot of competitions around the world and the Olympics and all such things. And there was a dish that I created for the Global Chef Challenge, which was held in Norway. And it was a pea and wasabi dish. Got me an award from Norway on the global stage and everything. But that dish also was awarded here in South Africa as most beautiful object in South Africa at the time. I think it was 2014, somewhere there. So it was something that somebody literally said they would wash their hair with this dish because they loved it that much.
I actually remember you winning that most beautiful object because I think you beat Janez Vermeeren. He came second and he was very upset about it. But I think they got the choice right. You've made amazing food. That food has often been drunk with amazing wine. How much of a love of wine is there? How important is the wine component to what you're offering people up?
I think it's very important if you're a wine lover, obviously. So the food does play its own part, and it's fine if you want to eat that on its own. But if you're pairing it with the wine, it's so crucial that your wine sort of meets the food and tells a whole story. And that's what I love about sitting down with Solly and pairing the different dishes with different wines and whatnot, and you get such a different experience, from different wines. And the only way to sort of know what I'm really speaking of is to try it, see how the dish tastes on its own, and then to match it with a wine that sort of pairs perfectly. So, it's quite special.
We're going to have a look at that menu in a moment because it is an incredible menu and the wines look sensational. I've asked you about your favourite dish. Has there been a favourite wine that you've had over the years?
Over the years, I can't sort of pinpoint one specifically off the top of my head.
So if you just got the phone call, Candice, you're the first person ever to get 4 stars from Michelin. Your new restaurant is amazing. It's time to celebrate, obviously, with your very best friend in the world, Dan, and open an incredible bottle of wine. What would we be opening to celebrate?
So I love a Chenin. But to pinpoint one specifically, I can't give you an answer at the moment.
Oh, you're being very diplomatic. I'll tell you what, she mentioned some names off camera, but asked me not to say anything. All right, I'll find some great Chenin for us. But first of all, let's have a look at this menu because you've got a brand new restaurant. It is 7 course, is that right?
Yeah, 7 courses.
All right, 7 course pairing menu. This is Dan in heaven. And as you can see, after Christmas, there's almost nothing left of me. I'm in need of a decent meal. So this is Cyra. It's the brand new restaurant at the Houghton Hotel. The space will be familiar if you've eaten here before, but it's been given not just a fabulous facelift, it's also been given a rock star injection to the kitchen. God only knows what they paid to get her here, but they have, and that's the important thing. Candice, first of all, the name, Cyra. Why Cyra, and am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, so Cyra. So the reason I chose Cyra is because we have this beautiful view here, and in the evening or late afternoon when the sun sets, the sun shines in here and illuminates the whole room. And Cyra essentially means sun. It does have other meanings, but we're going with sun. And then I looked at the other spaces that they have here at the Houghton, which is Nova and Astra, which happen to both be stars. And Cyra is also a star. So it all kind of ties in, and it's quite a girly sort of feminine look and feel to it, which is why I like it.
I think it's a really cool name and a really cool meaning. And obviously a space that must have appealed because you have cooked for Oprah and Bruce Springsteen and Mumford & Sons and all the rest of them at the Saxon. You've worked alongside David Higgs. You've had great at the Saxon. You had a great stint at Basalt at the Peach. There are a lot of people who have posters of you up in their kitchen. Oh, it's Candice, she's my favourite chef. So for you to be here is a great coup for the hotel. It's a great coup for the restaurant. Why here?
So it was an opportunity that sort of presented itself, and obviously it's a great space. It's one of the best views in Joburg, really. It's a little bit bigger than what I'm used to, but challenge is always good, and it's obviously a lovely, pretty space. So it was a no-brainer, really.
The aesthetic is marvellous. As I said, I was playing golf here yesterday. I tried very hard to hit a ball through the window, but I couldn't quite reach. I'd written a little note on it with my order for lunch. So coming in, it looks great. There have been a number of changes to what it was before. How does that process work for you? You've got a brand new restaurant. You come with your signature style, but there's also an element of, well, it is a new space. How do you, right, we've signed the contract. The 11-figure sum is now in my bank account. I'm going to start this new restaurant. How does that process unfold?
So yeah, we kind of have a lot of talks around what I'm wanting, what they're wanting, or what they expect to see within the space, because obviously we're in a hotel. And obviously I'm a fine dining chef. I think most people know that. So I did do a cook-off, not for them to hire me, for them to see what it is that I do. If at some point you don't think this is going to be suitable, then tell me so we can move along. But so I did cook for them a 7-course meal, so they could see exactly what it was that I potentially was wanting to do. And yeah, we kind of went from there. Then we looked at the cutlery, the crockery, the interior of the room, the staffing, obviously. Um, the front house people are all my OGs. So that makes me feel a little bit more at home because I know that the front house know what they're doing. So yeah, it's a whole process. It's like a million things all at once. There's a lot of things to consider when you're opening a new restaurant. Not even from scratch, from where we were. It's a big process.
You touch on a few important things there. The food is reasonably important, I'll grant, for a restaurant. The look and feel is also quite consequential. But by an absolute mile, the single most important element of any restaurant on the planet ever is the wine list. How much of a role do you play in collating that, in curating that, in working with the team to ensure that not only is there a wonderful wine offering, but it is also one that speaks to what you're doing in the kitchen?
So this is where it's a little bit different for me, is that I like to change my menu sort of quite often to have people coming back to experience.
Sommeliers must hate you for that.
to experience something new, something different. So we're not always serving the same thing and you've seen it 100 times. So the menu would change quite often, and with that we like to sort of source different sort of wine farms or wine partners that we use, which makes it interesting. So every time you come here, for the different menus, it's a different showcase of something or other, and it's not necessarily brands or wines that you would be able to buy, like in the store. So from that perspective, it's not necessarily a wine list that we've drawn up, but it's a wine showcase that we do with each menu, which is really, I think it's something nice, something different, and something that people like to see, brings them back.
I'm going to explore the cellar in a moment. Before I do that, I can't come, and this is purely research. This is not because I'm just incredibly greedy and want to eat all of Candice's wonderful food. Probably a 7-course at lunch right now might be a bit much, but there are some extraordinary dishes on here. Could we maybe do a few of these? Could I banish you to the kitchen and make sure you're still making the food as well as I remember?
Of course. So I'm going to do 3 dishes for you.
Okay, that sounds manageable.
Hand-picked, and yeah, you can tell me what you think.
All right, I'm looking already, and I'm seeing on the menu not just some terrific dishes. The tomato ginger, I love ginger with Chardonnay, looks so cool. I love a bit of sea bass. We don't eat nearly enough of it, and Pinot Gris is a lot of fun. You got a great cheese dish here. There's a wonderful dessert that's got some silverthorn, and John Loebsch is a magician. But you can surprise me. It's a 7-course pairing menu while you go off to the kitchen and do what all great chefs do, which is tell other people to do all the work while you come back and take all the credit for. I'm going to head into the cellar. There's a wonderful man called Solly, who's by some distance the best dressed man in the hotel today. I suspect that's the case most days. He's going to tell me about the wine that I'm drinking, and then I'll come back in here and see if Chef Candice has still got it. Well, this week I'm at the Houghton Hotel, hanging out at the brand new Cyra restaurant, and Chef Candice Philip, who has got an extraordinary new menu in a new space to match. Now, I've banished her to the kitchen to go and see if the food tastes as good as it sounds on the menu. While she's doing that, I'm in a space I know pretty well, because this cellar has been at the hotel for a while. It is always full of gems. And one of those gems is Solly. Solly, it's lovely to be back here and to be able to explore some food and wine, which is something I love. Where did your interest in food and wine come about?
Oh, that's a very good one. Look, I've been with Candice for the longest time now, when she started the fine dining. That was 2010, and then we haven't stopped ever since. So that's where everything started with me. Look, you start somewhere down there as a waiter, and then you get, eager to learn, and you see some Soms doing that one, like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And that's where I kind of get a sense of what is happening. Look, I really raised my hands. I started doing this wine and food, from the Soms that were there at the time. But look, I've never looked back. And then, now I'm just doing my own things here. So I just want to say it's been an experience, but look, I'm enjoying it.
Now, the chef tends to get lots of press, lots of media. Everybody says all these wonderful things about the person doing the food, when really it should be the person looking after the wine who gets all of the accolades, because that's far more important than the actual cooking.
Thank you. Somebody has to say it. Thank you.
Tell me about the relationship there with Candice, because we know chefs can be quite colourful sometimes, especially in the kitchen, in terms of giving out wine that works with the food. How do you work as a team there?
What she does, obviously, she'll just start, working the menu in her mind, and then she'll just tell me what she thinks. And ultimately, when she comes to me and says, like, sorry, I'm thinking of this already right there and then, that's when I'm start thinking of the wine. Okay, if you say that, then I think this one, we really cannot, talk or go right to the menu being, there for everyone to see. She'll have to do the menu later, but the theoretical part of it, that's where the wines come in mind, and I tell her what I think, and then we discuss. And then when she bring those flavors, she's also have an idea of what wine will go with that. Even though we haven't tasted it, because we've been together for quite some time, we understand each other. And then once the menu is out there and then we taste, I promise you, it always works.
Well, I'm about to find out, because once we're done, I've got the food and wine to try out for the first time. But you're going to give me some advance information, because I've got the menu here.
Yes, sir.
And we kick off. There's a beef and mushroom tartare savoury donut, which sounds rather exotic. What I really like, though, is the choice of wine with it, because you've gone with, as far as I know, the only bubbles in South Africa that's 100% Columbar, and that's the River Dragon from John Loebscher at Silverthorne.
The whole idea with me, if you're doing the food and wine pairing, I bring in the bubbles. To me, it's just as a cleanser in a way. Have the bubbles to start, cleanse your palate, and then there's more wonderful food and wines to be coming through. But again, this is not about just you cleansing your palate, it's looking at the pairing. Remember, with pairing is what are you directing these bubbles at? So that snack, that's where my target pairing is.
All right, you're off to a cracking start there. Silverthorne doing Robertson proud. On to Stellenbosch and some Zevenwacht. And here a little bit of a challenge, I think, for you from the wine side, because this is a dish that it's got tomato, so really there's the acidity. You've got some fennel, and fennel's quite a distinctive flavour. And then on top of that, with that aniseed coming out of the fennel, you've also got some ginger, which I love. But ginger is also something that screams out its flavour. It's not going to hide quietly in the corner. So why the Zevenwacht Chardonnay?
Thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I said to her. I'm like, Chef, are you going to have the tomato and the ginger in one dish? You know how hard that is for me. She's like, no, I know you'll make it work. Exactly that's what it is. So look, I went for the Chardonnay, considering the flavor profile that you mentioned. Firstly, she knows I'm not a fan of tomato, because in terms of wine, you need to kind of really work your brains out. But look, I went for this lovely Chardonnay. It's called the Zevenwacht Chardonnay. It is from Stellenbosch. The vintage is 2023. So this Chardonnay is, like you said, you need to think of the acidic on the tomato. I went for something that doesn't have more acid in there. So I went for the wooded Chardonnay, to counter the acidic of the tomato itself. Something a little bit less acidity, but it's not 100% wooded Chardonnay. It's only 90% that was, wooded. There's also the 10% that was a concrete egg potion, because I wanted it to maintain that freshness, the lightness, because you are having the tomato at the end of the day. Even though I hate it, but it's light. We don't want to bring the full-bodied Chardonnay, something that is more creamier, more buttery, kind of like, just add more cream on the dish. So it's 90% barrel fermented, and then 10% concrete is, to maintain that freshness and the lightness. So that's why I went for that.
I can almost picture Candice sitting in the kitchen going, what dish can I create that's going to make Solly's life as hard as possible? And I think she's given you a great test with that tomato dish. Also a test with the next dish. And here you've got, again, some slightly contrasting flavours. You've got some ostrich fillet, no real fat, so it's not as much flavour as there might be with some other red meat cuts. You've then got some beetroot, very earthy, very umami. And then you've got the duck liver, which is a very, very rich element to have in any dish. What do we drink with this?
All right, to go with the dish, I went for the Pinot Noir. It's the Sounds of Silence Pinot Noir. It's from Algen. The vintage is 2023. You look at those flavors. It's the ostrich, it's a bit spiced, so everything is kind of like on the raw side of it, but it's fresh. Like I mentioned, there's beetroot with a bit of sweetness in there. There's also a bit of dark liver cream with a bit of lightness. But look, I went for the lighter style Pinot Noir. If I pour that, it looks like it's like I pour it with cranberry juice there. Yes, because the color is just a see-through color, but it's more fruitier, and it just really gel well with the whole dish.
For the next dish, it's one of my favourite types of fish. It is the sea bass.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's caught in the water hazards of the golf club next door, but wherever you end up getting your sea bass.
Absolutely.
sea bass, where the previous dish was quite a almost wintry dish. There was lots of richness to it, lots of darkness to it. Suddenly we're straight back into the heart of summer, a light white fish, and to go with it, a Pinot Gris, which is something we don't see quite as much of in South Africa, but when we do tend to enjoy.
Thank you. And I'm glad you just highlighted the fact that we don't really go much into the Pinot Gris in South Africa. It's not that not so popular white wine in South Africa, but look, when you do the food and wine pairings, we get invited to these, wine tastings, and then you taste something. There's a lot of small farms in South Africa that are doing wonders. So I like this Winshaw Brothers, what they did with this Pinot Gris. Already once I tasted, because I was somewhere when I tasted it, I'm like, this has to go into the dish, but into my pairing. As for which dish, I don't know. Thank God Candice is here. She made the dish that really just said Pinot Gris.
A beef and shiitake dish has got a lot of very classic elements to it. You've gone with Le Chant. What attracted you to the wine and directed to this dish?
So it's a beef fillet that has been sous vide, and then she just seared it afterwards. So once she sous vide it, she just want to make sure that it gets a consistency in cooking, and she just do a bit of searing afterwards. So if that beef is just melt in your mouth. So right there, and then I just thought of, I'm going to pair this dish with a melon. That was my choice. All right. The dish came and then we tasted, and I've tasted with the melon. It paired beautifully. Blah, blah. Okay. I can do more. Let me get a blind, which is what Le Chant is. It's a red blind, but it's a Merlot dominant red blind. It is not a traditional Bordeaux blend, but I do have 3 grapes in that bottle, Bordeaux grapes in there. So it's a dominant Merlot. There's also Cabernet Franc, there's Cabernet Sauvignon, and I've got the Shiraz, and there's a tiny bit of Sangiovese in that bottle. So the reason I went for this blend, the Merlot pairs is beautiful, then one. Sometimes, like you can just play around with the pairing. I want a little bit more. What can you do? If you have a Shiraz, Shiraz by nature, the character, you get a bit of spiciness from the Shiraz. So if I get spiciness from this, but without really changing the whole dish, get a tiny bit. I need a blend that has a Merlot, but a tiny bit of Shiraz, so that I can just help elevate the dish with adding a little bit more spice, but not really overpowering the dish.
This Blanc de Mer is a fascinating white blend, which goes with a fascinating almost last dish.
So this Bouchard Finless and the Blanc de Mer, it's from Hermanus. It's a blend of Riesling, Viognier, and Chardonnay. Look, but the dominant grape in there is the Riesling. So Riesling, especially one for the German Riesling, is an off-dry wine. There's a tiny bit of sweetness in there. But, that Viognier and Chardonnay just add that dryness that I was looking for. Because, look, with the cheese that we're having is an Alpino cheese. It's more creamy because she just whip it and then she just pump it in there. It's more creamier, but the tiny bit of sweetness that you get from that blend, it just really kind of like help cut through. That's what I was looking for, but not really making it more sweeter, like if I were to bring in the Noble Late Harvest or be it the straw wine.
All right, I'm not going to be able to talk to you for much longer because you've got me so hungry now after running through all of these dishes. But there is one last one, and what fascinates me here is you've decided to go back. Now, at a lesser restaurant, this might just be an example of economics and trying to save some money, but I know that's not the case here because I know how the mind of a sommelier works. And what you've done here is shown at both the start and the finish how this Robertson Colombard-based Cup Classique can speak to 2 very different dishes and do so showing 2 completely different sides of the same wine.
Thank you. Look, like I mentioned, now we're going back to where we started. Look, for the dessert, we are closing it with the bubbles, which is the same bubbles that we had, the Brewstyle, Silverthorn, River Dragon, Brut MCC. But look, there's a bit of a twist on there. Remember that dessert is it's a cheesecake, cardamom cheesecake, and then she's just bringing the sorbet on the side. So while you're enjoying that dessert, that sorbet acts as a cleanser. You've got the richness of that cheesecake, then you eat the sorbet. It kind of refreshes and cleanses your mouth. So I thought, no, the bubbles will do justice with me here because the bubbles will do exactly what the sorbet is doing, cleansing your palate. Remember when you start, I say, it's the beginning. Cleanse your palate, enjoy more wonderful ones to come. How do we close it? Let's cleanse your mind and then you can now just relax. So I brought it in a Brut style. I didn't want to bring something like a demi-sec where it's sweeter. The dessert is sweet, so I'll bring in the Brut. But I've just asked Chef, because she uses the hibiscus to garnish her dessert. I'm like, Chef, is it possible that we can extract some sort of flavor from this hibiscus that you're using? She said to me, yes, for sure. I'm like, I don't even know how she did it, but no, she went and do it for me. I've got the syrup, that a tiny bit that I put in there, just gonna like add a bit of hibiscus flavor into the bubbles, but the bubbles is still the same. It's dry bubbles brewed, and then just with the infusion of that hibiscus, like I said, that part of the bubbles is just to really cleanse your palate.
I'm worried that I'm going to need a cleansing after a 7-course meal and 7 fabulous glasses of wine. It is a terrific, terrific collection. The scene has been set by Solly. He's given us a brilliant portrait of the wines that go into this food and wine ensemble, which means it's time for me to head back to the dining room, sit down with Chef Candice, and see if everything that she said about the food and that Solly has said about the wine are actually true. With my cellar tour at the Houghton done, it is back into Cyra. I've worked through with Solly, the wine expert, as to what is on the menu and why he has suggested these are the wines to go with the food that Candice creates. Now to see if they work together. Are there ever furious arguments? Do you have Solly in a death grip in the kitchen as you insist that he chooses something other than what he's recommended, or is it generally a fairly peaceful process?
No, yeah, it's generally fairly peaceful. We kind of sit around the table as we do, tasting the food and pairing the wines, the different options that we have, and see which one is the best. So, yeah, it's kind of a mutual understanding and agreement.
Often the role of the sommelier or the wine steward is to find a wine that brings the best out of the food. Is it ever the other way around? You sometimes stumble upon a bottle of wine and go, oh my goodness, if I had this wine and I made a lightly seared ostrich ice cream on a blue cheese souffle, this would be the best thing ever. Does the wine ever kick off the creative process as opposed to the other way around?
Really, for me, really. I mean, we find some really amazing wines and we would love to use them, and then we work around, how we could potentially bring that into the menu or which dishes they might work with. But generally speaking, we're working around the food.
All right.
So, yeah.
I have a sneaking suspicion that you either don't like Solly very much or you are doing your best to make sure that he's kept on his toes, because the first of the dishes you've given me here, which is one of the 3 from the 7-course menu, you've not made life easy for the poor guy. You've got tomato ladled with acidity. You've then thrown in the aniseed that comes with fennel, and on top of that some ginger, which is not a quiet, shy, retiring foodstuff, and you've put them all on the same plate. No wonder the poor man was in tears in the cellar.
So this is one of our best dishes, actually, and the pairing goes really well with it. So usually quite hard to find a pairing that matches with tomato, but we did a good job.
All right, so the dish itself, are those little nasturtium leaves on the top?
Yeah, nasturtium leaves. And the idea behind the dish is really a tomato ceviche in essence, with fennel.
I think Solly might have got that one right. That does work really nicely together. Why for you does it work?
It's just a harmony of the flavors. I love it when a wine sort of meets a dish halfway and then together makes it a full sort of experience. So it just captures all the right notes.
Okay, this is dish number 2. I really, really enjoy sea bass. Probably got to discover it mostly from holidays in Greece and eating it fresh out the water. It's got just a little bit more substance to it without becoming a big, rich, oily fish. Why the love of sea bass, and how do you think it feeds into a Pinot Gris, which is also a slightly unexpected combination?
So sea bass obviously is a meaty fish, but lighter than others. So I like to use a sea bass with a crispy skin. I've also paired this one with sesame. So tahini, we've got a furikake over the top there, which is a Japanese spice. Obviously, we've made it ourselves, so it's been tweaked a little bit. And then we have some lemon dollops around the outside there. So it's very sort of nutty, fresh, acidic with a lemon, and it all comes together in a really sort of rounded flavor, which works really well with the wine. So, and over the top there you have a crispy seaweed sort of garnish. So the spirulina works with all the other flavors.
Is there, inside of the award-winning, world-acclaimed chef, an artist desperately trying to express, because this is beautiful. It's been done marvellously.
Yes, I did actually study art. So, but
Aha.
yes, it does play play a role in my plating.
All right, so a little bit of a mouthful of everything together,
Yeah,
including
yeah.
my...
Crispy and the lemon as well.
All right, here we go. Oh, so much flavour to look forward to. If you listen very carefully, that's the sound of angels playing harps in the background as I tuck into this. One of the things, and I'm not a particular chef I'm thinking of, but some of the younger chefs I've eaten from the last few years and all over the world, there's often been the case of, well, we could use 10 ingredients, but let's use 20 instead, and it just all becomes too much, and you lose the flavour within itself. Whereas here, much as you want to get the food and wine pairing right by not having anything completely overtake anything else, the balance on this is just lovely. It is so good. And what I really love, and I'm only taking a second very large mouthful for research purposes, is that other element that I love in wine, and it's so important to me in wine, and you've got a really nice combination here, particularly with that crispy topping, is the texture. And it just does add so much to the sensorial experience when you're eating.
Yeah.
One more check, just to be sure. Oh, that is a delight. All right, on to round 3 and dessert, where often we are presented with a dessert wine to go with a dessert. There are a number of reasons I don't like that. First of all, I don't like the title dessert wine. It suggests we're going to get diabetes by drinking it. It speaks to none of the nuance and the subtlety. And it also says, well, this is the only time you can drink it, when I think it's perfectly acceptable for breakfast. But also, it's so much sugar that sugar, for me, it's often just an implosion of sweetness. And you don't get the best out of either dish or out of food. You've got a wonderful dessert here. You've gone with what was just a simple glass of fabulous Colombar Cup Classique that features earlier in the memory. You've added it to the set of Barbie with a splash of pink. Why have you gone with this, and why is this sitting with the dessert?
So we've used the champagne, and then we've taken, so it's a completely different sort of pairing. I've made a hibiscus syrup in the kitchen, and so we put a little splash of that at the bottom, and then you pour your champagne over the top, so almost like a Cœur Royal type of vibe. But it's supposed to marry up with the hibiscus that's in the dish. So you'll taste. We have a beautiful cheesecake there with it's a nectarine and lemon verbena salad. We've got some nectarine glass on there as well, and then we finish off with the raspberry sorbet. And yeah.
So this is very unprofessional, but while I'm on camera, I'm actually going to take a photo of this, partly because it looks so good, but mostly because it's going to annoy so many people, including my wife, that while they're sitting in the office, I'm hanging out with a super cool chef and eating amazing food. It's my day. All right, so is there a particular order in which I should try these? Try them all together?
Yeah, I usually try a little bit of everything together. That's how I...
Sweet enough to be delightful, but also lovely little tang, lovely little bite to it. It's in such great balance. It is glorious. Candice, you've got some incredible chapters in the book already written, and I've been lucky enough to sample some of them. But I think this is as exciting as anything. The food in the 3 courses so far has been brilliant. I love the combination of the wine. Clearly, you and Solly have got a great partnership. It's shown through beautifully. And so my only remaining question is how many nights a week you're open, so I know how many times I can come and visit you over the next month.
So at the moment we're open from Wednesday to Sunday, so Wednesday to Saturday evenings, and then we do have a Sunday lunch that we do on Sundays. But yeah, from 6:30 to 8:30.
All right. Well, expect me to be visiting, although I expect there to be rather a long queue, because one of South Africa's great chefs has got a great new home, and what makes it so perfect, beyond just her exceptional cooking skills and her feel for this space, is that together with Solly, this is a home to not just great food, but great wine, and the coming together of both of those in perfect unison. I've got 3 plates to finish off and a director not to feed. It's been a pretty good day. Next time you come, ask for Candice, ask for Solly. I guarantee you're in for something special. Cheers.